Hey free-to-play gang, welcome back to another video. I can't see you at all, just like Horseboy over here, who we are going to do a really small showcase about. So let's take a look at his skills followed by his Ascensions and Resonances. And yes, I know a lot of people are always asking me like, they're free-to-play, you say that you post free-to-play content, but yet at the same time your relics are completely paid to win. How the hell does that even make sense for anyone who wants to watch your videos? Like, what kind of negative message am I trying to bring across? And the truth is, I can't help it, right? My relics are, I guess, I farmed a lot. So I've reached a point where I'm just here. Sucks to be me, I guess. But okay, so thankfully we have the PTR account, and that's why I have Daniel here as well. So some of you guys might be wondering how I got him so early, and that's because PTR account is like about a week in advance. So I have pretty mediocre stats on this Daniel account here, this account with Daniel. So I don't have a lot of crit rate, I have pretty subpar crit damage, my HP is okay, plus 31,000, which is okay. But aside from that, you know, my speed, accuracy, all that, just subpar, right? Just barely the minimum. But the thing is, for my PTR account, it's actually pretty good. So a few things to take note of is his HP is actually tremendously high, right? Almost 16,000. This is, I think, a little bit higher than Ahmed, if I'm not wrong. Sorry, I lied. Ahmed has more HP. Regardless, let's take a look at his skills, right? So first skill, I have Courage Shot, attacks one enemy, deals 5% of his max HP. So it doesn't scale according to his attack, which is something to take note of. 60% chance of inflicting silence for 2 turns. Now upon successful infliction, gains recovery for 2 turns. So do take note that you need to apply silence before landing your recovery. This is very important. And why this matters is because he eats up a lot of his own HP with his second and third skills. That is what his kit is all about. But at the same time, it is not very easy for him to gain the recovery because he has a typing, right? So he has an Inferno type. If he hits someone who is Flow type, he's going to have a much poorer chance of landing the silence, which means he has a much lower chance of gaining a recovery for himself. Now moving on to his second skill, right? Centaur's Blessing, or is it Centaur? I'm just gonna call it Centaur. Current HP minus 14%, so we are starting to lose HP here. Grants all allies attack up and shield up for 2 turns. Now shield strength is 20% of his max HP. So this is kind of like a unique combination, right? Attack up and shield. I don't think we have many Espers that have this in one skill. I know you're gonna say Abigail has it, but in one skill, that's what I'm talking about. But do also take note that this skill has a really freaking short cooldown of 3 turns, which is very important because of something that we need to talk about, which is his Resonance later on. And now his third skill, Meteor Flurry, current HP minus 10% again, so he's losing more HP here. Attacks all enemies twice, damage per hit is 3% of his max HP, which goes up to 6% if he hits twice, right? Now each hit has a 60% chance of inflicting AP minus 20%, which quick math calculation here is actually a 36% chance of inflicting AP down minus 40%, so not very good rates in my opinion. Now, if an enemy's HP percentage is above Daniel's, inflict stun for 1 turn. And one thing that I want to clarify, which I think most of you guys would be very curious to know is, how does this work, right? Does it take into consideration after you land the damage? Because if you inflict DPS on the enemies, that's going to push down their HP percentage a little bit, which means that it's going to be harder for you to land stuns. So that's very crucial, right? So that's definitely something that I'd like to explain to you guys as well. And his Captain ability is increases allies' HP in point wall by 30%. So let's take a look at his Ascensions first. So over at his Ascensions, we have 70 defense, we have 950 HP, we have 10% HP, which is kind of odd. Like, this HP seems like it should have been in his Ascension 6. And then we have accuracy plus 15%, and we have speed plus 10. So I'm actually quite happy about the speed plus 10, so that puts him one of the fastest Espers in this game. So he's 3 speed slower than Gabriel and Unas. That's about it. Now in terms of his Resonance, right, so this is the part that he becomes a little bit more interesting, I think. So R1, basically nothing, right? Final shield strength plus 10% on his second skill, which is and each surviving enemy grants accuracy plus 5%, which is also bleh. Attack and whatever. Okay, these are the stats. R4 here, if an ability is on cooldown, speed plus 18, which I think is decent because he's gonna cycle quite well. I think his cycling ability is actually pretty good, right? It's kind of odd because he has like 4 legs, but he cycles. Funny, haha. More stats, and finally R6, which is very important for his kit, I think. Cause take a look at this, right? New effect, Centaur's Blessing, gains 1 turn. This is huge for his kit, and the reason for that, let's just take a look at his skills again. So check this out, his second skill actually has a 3 turns cooldown. So this is actually a 2 turns cooldown skill because he's gonna go from this skill and he's gonna instantly gain a new turn, which means that this skill's cooldown is gonna instantly reduce by 1. And if you have stuff like Ocean Waves, this skill is actually gonna go down freaking fast. He can trigger his attack up buff quite often. So I think if players do not have Alice, I think he's a pretty decent choice. Like, he's an actually decent choice or decent alternative to players who do not have Alice because this skill has a potential to cycle really well. So there are 2 things that I need to clarify, right? So 2 very important things for you to take note of as well. So number 1, how is his AI going to prioritize his second skill? Because this skill is quite important for it to go first. And the reason why it needs to go first is it gives you that extra shield, which means that if you go into your third skill afterwards, this current HP minus 10% is actually not going to affect him. It's going to hit into his shield instead, which is kind of nice for his tankiness. But the second thing that I want to test out is this effect over here, right? So if an enemy's HP percentage is above Daniel's, inflict stun for 1 turn. So what exactly does this mean? So how does it trigger and in what order? So do you lose your HP first? Do you deal your damage first? Or do you just land the stuns at the start? So let's check this out. I mean, obviously I already know the answer because I've tested this like 1,000 billion times. So let's take a look at his AI first, right? So let's press the AI button. What you notice is that he uses his Meteor Flurry. He doesn't use his second skill. And what you must understand is that we landed stuns as well, which is the second part done in one sweep. But let's talk about the first point that I wanted to bring across first, which is he uses his third skill instead of his second skill for his AI, which means that when his turn comes around, this is when he will start using his Centaur's Blessing, which is decent in itself because if he's at R6, he's going to reduce the cooldown of his third skill by a couple of turns, right? Because not only are you using a second skill, you're going to gain a new turn, which means that his third skill actually has like 1 turn of cooldown left. Pretty sick in my opinion. And as for the second thing that I wanted to clarify is that his third skill actually reduces his HP first, and then that's when he lands the stuns. And after that, the third step is to deal damage. So it's not counterintuitive that this skill deals damage as well, it's not. So I actually kind of like this a little bit. I'm not super sure where I would use him just yet, but I would definitely invest into him in my own main account. I'm not going to invest too much into this side account where I don't have enough relics to make him work, but I feel like he has a lot of potential. So I know that the AP reduction is not like magic, right? But at the same time, he has a stun with an AP down in the same kit, which is pretty decent. And this skill has a shorter cooldown because of his second skill. So this second skill that gives himself more turns is actually a really good character-wide skill cooldown reductor. And for the mere fact that he has such good uptime on his second skill with, I think, perpetual attack up buff, right? I think this skill actually has a perpetual attack up buff and a shoot up buff as well. He has a lot of potential in a lot of PvE content, like content that you need to auto repeat a lot. I feel like he works really well. So if you needed an Alice, yes, he is a decent replacement, but at the same time, you know, he has silence on his kit, which is also decent for Temporal Tower bosses, Infinity Tower bosses, maybe even in PvP, but then again, you know, this silence debuff, I'm not too fond of silence in PvP. But anyway, let me just try to illustrate how this skill is also negative in its own sense. So the thing is, if we attack an enemy who is positively attuned against us, we have a much lower chance of landing our silence, which means we have a much lower chance of gaining the recovery buff as well. So let's check this out. We are going to land a miss. Oh, we did not land a miss, but we got resisted. So there is a double layer there of us not getting the recovery buff, which kind of sucks for us. Now, another thing that I want to bring up is his attack up buff. So the thing is, all of his skills don't scale according to his attack. So then this buff is actually quite wasted on him because it doesn't do anything. It's kind of similar to Everett, right? So only the shield matters in my opinion. But you know what? I'm quite fond of the fact that his cooldown reduces quite a fair bit. But the thing is, in terms of where we are right now, it is impossible to get an R6 copy of him right now. Unless I think if you use him in the Club Wish pool, right? The Club Wish stickers. I think that's the only way that you can get a full R6 copy of him, but I wouldn't be doing that. But in terms of his DPS, I think he's okay. So let's take a look at his normal attack, right? It does about 6,000. Okay, if he crits, it does about 6,000 damage, which I think is decent considering that his stats are not tremendously powerful. But nice stunning kit, good AP reduction as well. I am quite curious to see where he's gonna succeed in. I feel like he has a good place to be somewhere. I'm just not completely sold on where he might be good in right now, or like where he's gonna shine the most. But overall, I kind of like his kit, and I think it's an interesting character as well. So let me know your thoughts and your comments down below. What do you think about him? How do you feel about his kit? Where do you think he's gonna shine at? What kind of builds do you think works well with him? So right now, I think maybe the Avatar works really well. I feel like Zeus is decent, although I feel like maybe Ocean Waves is a lot more powerful on his kit. Windwalker is decent, but at the end of the day, you don't really need him to be like super fast, right? So that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to leave a thumbs up. It really helps the channel, and subscribe for more Dislyte content. Now with that said, this has been Free to Play, and as always, I will see you in the next video. And I actually just thought about it. So actually using him in PvP is not bad, especially for like early game PvP, because you can use your second skill first, jump straight into your third skill afterwards to potentially land a stun and AP reduction and all that kind of good stuff, right? But at the same time, you have buffs for your entire team as well. I think that is actually pretty decent. I think that might work. So I'm actually going to delay this video a little bit because I want to see how his second skill, right? If I shoot myself, this actually works, right? Because I lower my max HP this way. right? I lowered my max HP by using my second skill, which means that using my third skill, I'm actually still able to land a stun. So that's a very important fact over there. So this is definitely going to work. If he's at R6, you can definitely run him manual to buff up, right? Just use your second skill, buff your entire team, and then use your third skill to reduce the AP of everyone else and land stuns as well. I think it's pretty decent in early game PvP at least. But anyway, that's it. See ya.